So, the Harts were a very busy household in Portland, Oregon. Two working parents, David, a civil engineer, and Stephanie, a hospital administrator. They had three children spanning 8 years in age, and they'd gone through four babysitters in 2 years before finding Nora through a local community board. So Nora was warm, patient, and very reliable. She never once called in sick in the 11 years she worked for them. The children adored her. The youngest, Bia, who was 2 when Nora arrived, grew up calling her Nori and for several years assumed that she was like a family member. So the references they had on her checked out. A background screening came back clean. Nothing was red flags when it came to like them looking up her background and making sure everything was good. It was all good. The discovery came not through suspicion but through paperwork. Stephanie was helping Nora apply for citizenship documentation when a clerk at the federal office flagged something. Nora's social security number had belonged to a woman who died in Ohio in 2008. Investigators identified the woman that the Hartleys were employing as Marta, and she was 49 years old. And Marta was originally from the Czech Republic. She had entered the U.S. legally in 2001 on a work visa, overstayed, and at some point, investigators believe around 2006, had obtained false documents under the name of Nora Vance, a real woman from Cincinnati who, passed away in a car accident. Now, Marta had no criminal record under either name. She had not stolen from the Harts, not harmed anyone, not used the family in any way that investigators could determine beyond identity fraud itself. She didn't commit any crimes beyond like using this person who's no longer with us by using her social security number to obtain employment. That's the only crime they could find on her. So this made the case deeply strange. The legal facts were clear. She did commit identity fraud and immigration violations, but the human facts were murkier. This woman had spent 11 years being genuinely good at her job, genuinely caring for children who were not hers, building a life that was, in all but name, entirely authentic. Dave said in a statement, "We don't know what to feel. The person we knew, the person who raised our children, she was real. Whatever name she was using, the love was real. But we also know we're deceived. But we also know we were deceived for over a decade, and we have no idea who this woman actually is." Now, Marta, in her one statement to investigators before legal proceedings began, gave an explanation that was both simple and impossible to fully verify. She said she had fled a situation in her home country that she wasn't willing to specify. She said she had taken the identity not to profit from it or hide a crime, but because she needed to disappear completely, permanently from the person she had been before. She said she had chosen the Hearts, not randomly, but because she had sat outside that house for 3 days watching, and they seemed like people worth protecting. That's a little weird. She sat out there for 3 days watching them. What were you doing out there for 3 days? And we look like people look like they need protecting from what? Okay. So investigators have never been able to confirm or deny the circumstances she described. Her country of origin's records for her original identity are incomplete. The trail before 2001 is largely blank. She was deported in 2020. The Hart children, now teenagers and young adults, wrote a collective letter to the judge asking for leniency for her. Identity is the thing we think is most fixed about us, the foundation everything else is built on. Marta lived for 20 years as someone else, and by most measures that anyone around her could see, she lived that life with integrity. The law is clear. Human question is harder. So Bia, the one she was closest to, is now 13, and still has the birthday card that Nori gave her for her 10th birthday. She hasn't thrown it away. She hasn't thrown it away, and she honestly says she doesn't know if she ever will. Because, I'm sure that's the only memory she has of this woman who raised her for 11 years and, gave her a lot of love and support. So it's kind of like hard to just shut that off and say, the police came or authorities came and said, your name is not, Nora, your name is Marta. To a child, it's like, okay, but she's still my friend. She still loves me. They still take care of me. She makes me dinner. It doesn't take away all of the support, all of the family support that she's given this family. But I understand the father's point of view as well. Like, I'm not taking anything from who Nora was because she was Nora and we appreciate Nora. But the fact that she's a whole nother person is some real ish. And, she didn't want to speak on what she was running from or why. It could be anything. This woman could have been a caretaker before and things didn't go so well. Maybe something happened to someone in the family or a child and she just couldn't live with herself. You don't get to just shove stuff under the rug and start a new life. It raises eyebrows and it's red flags for people in your new life, because you could very well do the same thing in your new family's life. So people just want full transparency and they want to know what's up so they can prepare. I'm sure if Marta was open about what happened back home in the Czech Republic and what she was running from, I'm pretty sure, authorities here and the family she was here with would have protected her, or backed her up. But maybe it's not them that she's afraid of. Maybe it's the people from there she's afraid of. So whatever the case may be, that was the time that the family had to split. They very much appreciated, the time they had with Nora, but I'm sure it just made them like, dang. Now we're back at square one. And they interviewed, 4 babysitters within a year before finding Nora. So that's not easy. It's really hard to find someone to care for your children. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.